Staring at something for a long time will not get you any closer to understanding it. If it did, there are a lot of ancient mysteries that we'd understand a whole lot better than we do. Scientists and historians have reached the end of the line with some of these enigmas. They've considered them from every angle, and they still can't make sense of them. In 1962, a South African boy named Carl Ludwig van Bezing was playing in the fields of his father's farm in Lenberg, Mpumalanga, when he came across several shattered pieces of pottery. He brought them inside to be examined by his father, who immediately realized they might be significant. He contacted professional archaeologists, and so the artifacts, now known as the Lenberg Heads, were officially discovered. There are 7 of the terracotta heads, 2 of which are proportioned to fit over the head of a child. 6 of them have human features, while the 7th appears to be that of an unknown animal. These are the oldest African Iron Age works of art ever to be discovered south of the equator, with an estimated age of 1,500 years. There's evidence to suggest they were once covered in white slip, a kind of clay slurry, and glittering specularite when they were brand new. Nobody knows what the heads were used for or even who made them. They have characteristics of several groups, including the Bini, the Ndebele, and the Bantu, but can't be attributed to any of them individually. Our next mysterious artifact is known as the 7-branched sword, although you might also hear it referred to as the Shishido. Legend has it that this ceremonial sword was given to a ruler of Yamato province in Japan by a king of Baekje in what's now South Korea. It must already have existed by the year 720, as it's mentioned in the Nihon Shoki, also known as the Chronicles of Japan, which was completed that year. The text claims that it was handed over during the 52nd year of the reign of Empress Jingu, but Empress Jingu is a near mythical figure, and so no dating related to her alleged reign can be relied upon. The unusual sword is almost 4 feet long and made of iron, with 6 protrusions jutting out from the central blade like branches. It's considered so valuable that it's not on display to the general public, and is instead safely locked up inside the Isonokami Shrine in Nara Prefecture. There's an inscription on one side of the sword which translates into English as, "At noon on the 16th day of the 11th month in the 4th year of Tai, the sword was made of 100 times hardened steel. This sword repels 100 enemy soldiers and is bestowed to the Duke Lord, manufactured by good fortune." That clearly marks it out as a gift, but from who and to who? Dogu figurines aren't rare. Archaeologists have found hundreds of them in Japan, mostly clustered in Kanto, Chubu, and Hokkaido. It's thought that the bizarre-looking figurines were created by the Jomon people. They were a culture that disappeared from history around 3,000 years ago, and nobody really knows why. That leaves us unable to explain the appearance of these clay figurines with their wide eyes and strangely shaped heads. They appear to be humanoid, but they fall short of being human. What are they supposed to represent? What were these clay figures used for? Why is it that, in so many cases, they appear to have been broken on purpose before being buried? We can probably assume that the act of breaking them was ceremonial or ritual, but we have no idea what those ceremonies involved, or why they were performed. To make matters even stranger, most Dogu figurines are found buried in a circular formation. That was clearly a deliberate act, too. If we understood the Jomon culture, we might understand the Dogu figurines, but unfortunately for us, we understand neither. The 4 golden hats of the Bronze Age are very unique, very strange artifacts. The long, conical, elaborately decorated hats have been interpreted by some as witches' hats, but that's unlikely to have been their intended purpose. However, that doesn't mean that the people who made them didn't believe that they had magical qualities. The symbols on the sides of the artifacts certainly appear to have either astronomical or agricultural connections, so the people who wore them might have been trusted to make predictions about the weather or the future in general. All 4 of the hats were created somewhere between 3,400 and 2,800 years ago. 3 of them were found in Germany, and the 4th was found in France. It's unlikely that they're the only hats of their kind that were ever made, so it's possible that more will be found by archaeologists in the years to come. The similarities between the objects are so strong that it's reasonable to assume that they served similar purposes, despite being separated by both time and geography. As for what that purpose might have been, though, your guess is as good as ours. The best preserved and best known of the artifacts is now called the Berlin Gold Hat and can be found in the Neues Museum in Germany's capital city. The Nooi figurines were found when workers in Sierra Leone, Africa were looking for diamonds. They're made of stone and look vaguely humanoid, but not so much that you'd say that they definitely represent humans. It's never easy for scientists to place a date on stone objects, but they're thought to be about 19,000 years old. They display remarkable craftsmanship for objects of such age. Local legends in Sierra Leone say that the Nooi figures represent angels that were cast out from heaven for bad behavior. That's just a legend, though, and the true origin of the sculptures is unknown. What can be said about them is that they would have been incredibly difficult to carve, with some of the figurines made from tough materials like granite. The presence of a spherical steel ball inside one of the statues is especially hard to explain, as the ball could only have been made by heating metal up to a very high temperature so it would melt. Based on what we think we know about the Sierra Leone of the time, no such technology existed. The Lady of the Spiked Throne sounds like the name of a cancelled Harry Potter book, but it's actually a leftover relic from the Indus Valley civilization, which once lived in Pakistan and India. The curious-looking artifact is thought to have been created around 2,300 years ago. It's a statue showing a female figure with an elongated head, sitting on a spiked throne that appears to have wheels. Both the woman on the throne and the people around her have large almond-shaped eyes to go with their elongated heads, and also feature beak-like noses and strange headdresses. Once again, you'd have to concede that they look more like classic depictions of aliens than human beings. Whoever the woman on the throne is, she seems to have been a powerful leader. She has 4 personal guards and sits behind a procession of other individuals. Right at the front of the procession is a bull, and on the bull's forehead is a symbol representing the sun. Does the woman represent a god? Or is it a strange depiction of a warrior queen at a ceremonial event? We wish we knew. Does a small clay tablet contain the oldest known example of applied geometry in the world? The archaeologist who rediscovered it in April 2021 certainly thinks so. And so does the mathematician he took it to for verification. The tablet is around 3,700 years old, but for the past 100 years it's been in storage in a museum in Istanbul, Turkey. It's thought to have been found in Iraq during the 19th century, but was considered so unimportant that it was kept in a part of museum that isn't accessible to the public. That perception has now changed. Dr. Daniel Mansfield from the UNSW Sciences School of Mathematics and Statistics says that it's the only example of what's known as a cadastral document from the Old Babylonian era. The tablet would have been used by ancient surveyors to define and record land boundaries, and they used applied geometry when doing so. The calculation recorded on the tablet includes a Pythagorean triple, which creates a perfect right angle. This remarkable discovery makes a mockery of the name. We call them Pythagorean triples because we think he invented them, but this tablet was made about 1,000 years before Pythagoras was born. Imagine pulling your fishing net out of a river and seeing this horrifying face staring back at you. You could be forgiven for dropping the net and running away in terror. Fortunately, Siberian fisherman Nikolai Tarasov doesn't spook easily. He found the figurine while he was out fishing in his village of Tisul, Russia in 2014. He was hoping to catch a crab, but instead he got a pagan god figurine that's thought to be around 4,000 years old. The furious-looking figure is roughly 1 foot tall and is made of a kind of animal horn that's partially fossilized. Nikolai took his find to a local museum and confessed that he had to sit down for a while when the museum's experts told him he'd found a Bronze Age relic. Prior to the arrival of Christianity, the ancient Slavic residents of this area practiced a number of different forms of paganism. This particular deity is thought to belong to either the Samos or Okunev cultures. They were neighboring societies and appear to have shared a few ideas about gods, culture, and representative art. Nikolai gave the statue to the museum immediately without seeking any form of compensation. In his eyes, it's a treasure for the Russian people. When the mummified remains of a woman were found in Mongolia's Altai Mountains in 2017, there were brief fears that she might have passed away recently. Those fears were based on the boots she was wearing. If you don't look at them too closely, they could pass for a brand new pair of Adidas snow boots. Adidas didn't manufacture this footwear for her though. She passed away somewhere around 1,100 years ago. No footwear that looks anything like this has ever been found in Mongolia before, so the current theory is that she was a talented seamstress and probably made them herself. She chose the now iconic three-stripe design because she thought it looked good. If only she'd known how far ahead of her time she was. Aside from the eye-catching shoes, she also had a comb, a mirror, a cute handbag, and 4 different changes of clothes with her when she passed away. That implies she was a dedicated follower of fashion. But inside the cute handbag, experts found goat bones, the entire broken spine of a sheep, and a smaller bag containing an even smaller cup. The latter discoveries suggest she may have been a witch, albeit an extremely fashionable one. Millions of people all over the world enjoy an occasional beer, but even the most ardent beer enthusiasts might turn down this next discovery. It's an Egyptian beer that was used in rituals some 5,800 years ago, and experts say that it would have had a consistency like porridge. This disgusting-sounding conclusion comes from a study of pottery that was recently found at the archaeological site of Nekhen in southern Egypt. It was made during a time long before the great pharaoh Narmer unified Egypt into a single state. Chemical analysis revealed that the pottery had been used to store beer, and also provided us with a surprising amount of information about the makeup of the beer. They found yeast cells, starch granules, tiny traces of plant tissue, and calcium oxalate. Their conclusion is that the beer was brewed from barley, wheat, and grass, and would have been very thick. As if that weren't bad enough, it would also have looked dark and cloudy. In other words, it wouldn't have looked very appetizing. To make matters worse, it would also have been a weak beer with low alcohol content. How did our ancient ancestors keep food cold in a time before refrigerators? Storing food in cold water or in ice was an option, but only if you lived in a part of the world where ice and cold water were plentiful. That wasn't the case in the Persia of 2,400 years ago, so they came up with another solution: the yakhchal. Yakhchals might look primitive and smell terrible, but they're good at their job. The word yakhchal means ice pit, although that isn't an accurate description of their form. Rather than being a pit, a yakhchal is a hollow mound. An average yakhchal would be 60 feet tall and full of water channeled in from the nearest springs. Wind catchers inside the yakhchals would cool the water down as it arrived, and a sophisticated cooling system ensured that heat and moisture were removed through evaporation. To help ensure that everything inside a yakhchal remained cold, the Persians coated them with clay, sand, goat hair, and egg whites. That's where the stink came from. The mixture repelled the heat of the sun, and everything inside the yakhchal stayed fresh. There are even still a few yakhchals in Iran today, and they're cold when you walk inside them, even when it's boiling hot outside. Our final artifact has several names, but precisely 0 credible explanations of its original purpose. It's the Disc of Sabu, also sometimes known as the Schist Disc or the Saqqara Disc. The latter name is a clue that it was discovered in Saqqara, Egypt. The best guess of archaeologists is that the 5,000-year-old artifact is a highly elaborate candlestick holder. If that's the case, it's the only one of its kind we've ever found. The fact that it's obsidian suggests there's more to it than a simple candlestick holder. Obsidian is a notoriously difficult material to work with, and nobody would go to the trouble of making a candlestick holder out of it back then when other materials were available. Even the fact that it's shaped like a wheel is a puzzle, because, as far as we're aware, the Egyptians were yet to discover the wheel 5,000 years ago. Conspiracy theorists on the internet will try to tell you that this is the steering wheel of an alien spaceship. We're not about to believe that, but the candlestick explanation is wholly unsatisfying. Maybe it's the ancient Egyptian equivalent of abstract art.
Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and enjoy watching new videos on my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon!